No niin, huomenta. Hauska nähdä täällä näin paljon ihmisiä, vaikka on hiihtoloma menossa. Tosin hiihtokelit on vähän heikot, että jotain tekemistä tietysti pitää keksiäkin. Mä olen Petri Haltia opetus- ja kulttuuriministeriöstä ja juonnan nyt tätä tilaisuutta, jossa siis julkistetaan OECD-raportti Continuous Learning in Working Life in Finland. Tämä raportti on opetus- ja kulttuuriministeriön ja työ- ja elinkeinoministeriön yhdessä tilaama ja yhdessä on myöskin oltu sen valmistelun tukena. Ihan lyhyesti ohjelmasta, että tilaisuuden tulee kohta avaamaan ja ensimmäisenä kommentoimaan opetusministeri Li Andersson. Sen jälkeen kuullaan tämän selvityksen tulosten ja suositusten esittely ja sitten ministereiden Haatainen ja Kosonen kommentit. Ja ollaan vielä pyydetty neljä kommenttipuheenvuoroa etukäteen, jonka jälkeen sitten on vielä aikaa yhteiselle keskustelulle ja kysymyksille ja kommenteille. Ja käytetään tässä tilaisuudessa nyt sujuvasti ja joustavasti suomea ja englantia. Ja keskustelun aikana voi tosiaan kysyä tai kommentoida sekä suomeksi että englanniksi, ja jos on tarvetta kääntämiselle, niin mä sitten teen parhaani sen suhteen myöskin. So, welcome for Mr. Scarpetta and Ms. Meyerkort also. And so we will be flexible with the languages today. Both Finnish and English are okay. And if there is need for translation, I will do my best. So, okei, so niin, ensimmäisenä tervetuloa opetusministeri Li Andersson.
Distinguished Mr. Stefano Scarpetta, Mrs. Anja Meyerkort, and all other experts in continuous learning, welcome to this publication event. Today we will hear OECD's views on the continuous learning system in Finland and how we can respond to the challenges that we have at hand. Our government recently set up a parliamentary working group to reorganize the Finnish system of continuous learning. Preparations for the reform are moving steadily forward, and we are currently defining the objectives and the necessary measures of the reform in concrete measures. Therefore, the timing of this report and its recommendations couldn't be better. We share widely the OECD's assessment of the Finnish context. The skills and participation rates of the Finnish working age population remains excellent, but globalization, technological change, and particularly a fast decreasing working age population call for rapid changes and updates to our education system and to the system of continuous learning in Finland. A particular area of concern is the appropriate targeting of education and training. To put it simply, we're seeing a pattern where those with high skills and a strong labour market position are also the ones likeliest to participate in job-related training and education, whereas adults with low skills and weaker labour market position don't get to enjoy the benefits of our continuous learning opportunities to the same extent. Therefore, groups of people who could benefit the most from upskilling and training are currently also the ones who are missing out. This needs to change, and we need to make continuous learning more accessible to people who are being put out of a job under the process of automatization, those with poor basic skills, and those who are unemployed or do not belong to the workforce, such as well as immigrants and also older members of the workforce. Therefore, we are sure to look particularly closely at the methods recommended by the OECD researchers so that upskilling or the educational good can better reach those who need it the most in the ongoing transformation of work and the ongoing transformation of the Finnish labour market. Nowadays, upskilling and reskilling opportunities for adults are much like a complicated jigsaw puzzle, one that requires a good deal of personal initiative and also a good deal of personal motivation. We need to ensure that updating your skills is truly accessible to all, not just to the motivated few. As the OECD recommends, this could be achieved, for example, by improving the quality of guidance, and establishing one-stop guidance services. The OECD advises Finland to consider developing an overarching vision for the continuous learning system and also a strategy about how different types of offerings can contribute to the whole. This work is currently well underway, and we will have our first results and first recommendations by the end of this year. It is clear that we will need to develop the skills of those in working life more systematically than what we have managed to do so far. We're also well aware of the need to provide a wider range of education and training, and also to shift focus from not purely focusing on programs that lead to a diploma or to a degree. This is no doubt a subject that also will spark a lively educational discussion here in Finland. Like the OECD, I too see that we need a more work-life oriented approach, and to respond proactively to major structural changes in working life, also have a closer interaction with companies and public sector employers, and that's imperative to achieve the goals that we've set out. Dear friends and experts, to maintain our position as one of the leading knowledge societies and welfare states, Finland's system of skills and competence must adapt to the changes brought about by globalization, technological change and automation. In my opinion, instead of trying to merely get by, our goal should be to harness the changes at hand for socially, economically and ecologically sustainable development. I would like to warmly thank the OECD and the authors of this report for their excellent, competent and comprehensive work, one that is bound to provoke thoughts and also encourage discussion regarding lifelong learning and continuous learning. I also welcome the valuable contribution to this report brings to the parliamentary group tasked with reforming the continuous learning system here in Finland. Käyn vielä lopuksi lyhyesti läpi johtopäätöksiä OECD:n raportista myöskin suomeksi, Suomen koulutuspolitiikalle ja sille työlle, mitä parhaillaan tehdään jatkuvan oppimisen uudistuksen tiimoilta. Työelämä muuttuu tällä hetkellä ennen näkemättömän nopeasti. Tämä muutos on tietenkin todellisuutta kaikissa maailman maissa ja näkyy myöskin täällä Suomessa. Se koskee käytännössä kaikkia aloja ja myöskin kaikkia työtehtäviä. Sen vuoksi jatkuvan oppimisen merkitys Suomelle ja myöskin Suomen kansantaloudelle ja työllisyydelle tulee tällä vuosikymmenellä kasvavaan merkittävästi. Kun maailma muuttuu nopeasti, oikeus ja aito mahdollisuus päivittää omaa osaamistaan läpi oman elämän, myöskin oman työuran, on paras vakuutus työttömyyttä vastaan ja myöskin yhteiskunnallinen välttämättömyys, jotta me voidaan saavuttaa mahdollisimman korkeata työllisyysastetta. Tällä hetkellä Suomessa osaamistaan päivittävät kuitenkin ennen kaikkea ne ihmiset, joilla on jo valmiiksi koulutusta ja osaamista, sekä kohtuullisen turvallinen asema työelämässä. He, jotka työelämän muutoksen ja tämän teknologisen nopean kehityksen näkökulmasta kaikkein eniten hyötyisivät oman osaamisen päivittämisestä, ovat myöskin ne, jotka tällä hetkellä jäävät paljolti tavoittamatta. Me emme tule pitkällä tähtäimellä onnistumaan työllisyyden nostamisessa, ellemme onnistu virittämään jatkuvan oppimisen järjestelmää, myöskin tavoittamaan paremmin kaikenlaisia eri koulutustaustan, myöskin hyvin erityyppisissä työtehtävissä työskenteleviä ihmisiä. Kuten OECD tässä raportissa suosittaa, on meidän kyettävä tarjoamaan nykyistä kattavampaa, myöskin nykyistä moniammatillisempaa ohjausta. Erityisesti on kyettävä tavoittamaan heitä, jotka ei välttämättä oma-aloitteisesti hakeudu koulutukseen, sekä myöskin onnistuttava räätälöimään heidän tarpeisiinsa sopivia koulutuskokonaisuuksia. Olemme, kuten hyvin tiedätte, käynnistäneet jatkuvan oppimisen parlamentaarisen uudistuksen, jonka keskeisenä tavoitteena on luoda työelämään uusia työssäoppimisen malleja myöskin aikuisille, sekä luoda keinoja tavoittaa tällä hetkellä aikuiskoulutuksessa aliedustetut ryhmät. Itselle sopivan, laadukkaan ja myöskin kiinnostavan koulutuksen löytäminen voi olla tällä hetkellä aika vaikea tehtävä ja myöskin vaatia aika paljon oma-aloitteisuutta, motivaatiota hakijalta. Ja tämä sulkee helposti jatkuvan oppimisen piiristä pois ne ryhmät, jotka siitä eniten hyötyisivät. Niin työntekijöiden kuin työnantajien on saatava nykyistä helpommin tietoa siitä, minkälaista koulutusta on tarjolla, mitä meidän koulutuksen järjestäjät tarjoavat tutkintoon johtavan koulutuksen lisäksi ja minkä tyyppiselle osaamiselle tulevaisuudessa on kysyntää. Ja meidän olisikin syytä alkaa puhua elinikäisen oppimisen rinnalla myöskin elinikäisestä opinto-ohjauksesta. Tällä hetkellä koulutustarjontamme ja myöskin opiskelijoiden saamat etuudet kannustavat vahvasti tutkintokoulutukseen, mikä ei aina työikäisille ole tehokkain mahdollinen vaihtoehto oman osaamisen päivittämiseksi. Sen vuoksi meidän on onnistuttava kehittämään koulutustarjontaa myöskin avoimemmaksi ja joustavammaksi niin, että meillä tutkintoon johtavan laadukkaan koulutuksen rinnalla myöskin on lyhytkestoisia erilaisia joustavia vaihtoehtoja. Samalla pitää myöskin huomata, että osaamisen validointi ja tutkinnot ovat tärkeitä. Ne ovat keskeisiä yksilön liikkuvuuden näkökulmasta ja myöskin motivoivat oman osaamisen kehittämiseen. Suomen kaltaisessa korkean osaamisen maassa koulutuspolitiikka on parasta ja tehokkainta työllisyyspolitiikkaa, mitä voidaan tehdä. Ja kun meidän väki vanhenee, kun teknologia kehittyy, niin on kyettävä tarjoamaan jokaiselle suomalaiselle aito mahdollisuus päivittää omaa osaamistaan ja oppia uutta läpi oman työuran. Ja mun mielestä tämä raportti tarjoaa meille erinomaisen hyvät eväät myöskin jatkaa sitä työtä, mitä jo ollaan aloitettu suomalaisen jatkuvan oppimisen järjestelmän luomiseksi. Kiitos.
Kiitos ministeri Andersson. No niin, seuraavaksi kuullaan nyt sitten, että miltä Suomen jatkuva oppiminen näyttää, kun sitä tarkastellaan vähän niin kuin ulkoapäin. So next we will hear what our continuous learning system looks like when it's looked at a bit from the outside. So Director Scarpetta, please. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Minister Andersson, Minister Hatainen, Minister Kosonen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is really truly a great pleasure for me to be here today and to present to all of you our report on continuous learning and working life in Finland, this beautiful location. I'd like to start by thanking the Minister of Education and Culture, the Minister of Economic Affairs and the Minister of Employment for actually commissioning this report. It has been a challenger for the OECD because, as you will see in my presentation, actually Finland performed extremely well also on other learning, and therefore finding ways in which you can make further progress, I think is perhaps more challenging than would have been in other countries. I think this report, and the Minister Andersson mentioned that very clearly, comes at an appropriate time. Finland, like any other OECD country, is really looking into how to improve other learning systems to make it more apt to the significant challenges in a labour market that is changing very rapidly in a very transformative way. Minister Andersson mentioned the parliamentary group that is actually working really right now this year to actually see how the system works and how to make it work even better. But also Finland set for itself what I think is an extremely ambitious target objective, the one to reach an employment rate, so the number of people working age who are in employment, of 75%. This, of course, would be a record high level in Finland, but actually in most, if not all, of the other OECD countries. Now, you're not that far, because if I understand the latest statistics suggest that you are 73%, but you all know that closing this little gap actually is very difficult because you have to bring into the labour market those who might be more detached from the labour market itself. We all believe that continuous learning is an important tool to actually achieve the target, but actually make the labour market work better for all, and actually give opportunities for those who might be struggling to keep their job or find a new job into the labour market. So this is the full report. There is also a little card at the back of the room which allows you to download the report for free. And for those very busy of you, including the Minister, of course, there is also a summary of the report itself that basically include the main points, the main recommendation of the report itself. I'm glad that I'm here with Anja Meyercord, that together with Anna Vindix actually produced the report itself in our directorate. Let me go into some of the main observations. First of all, I'd like to say that this is part of a work we are doing at OECD precisely on continuous learning. You might have seen, we have done a lot of work in reviewing other learning systems across the OECD countries. We have actually put forward what countries don't really like, which is a dashboard of how countries perform along a number of different dimensions of other learning. And of course, the continuous learning in working life in Finland is part of this in-depth country-specific reflection that goes beyond, if you like, the comparative analysis that we have already done. Each of these reports is actually, to some extent, tailor-made to the extent possible to the specific needs of the different countries. And in this sense, we highlighted two major areas in which there is already an ongoing reflection. Some of the things I'm going to say in the presentation actually are already under heavy discussion in Finland, and some of the action have already taken, which is somewhat rewarding for us because the recommendation already in action in your own reflection in Finland. One is how to make the continuous learning provision fit for the future. So to what extent is actually meeting the challenges and the opportunities that are out there in the Finnish economy, in the Finnish labor market. And I think, again, as Minister Andersson will say herself, how to make sure that everybody benefits from the continuous learning. Finland has a very long tradition of people continuously learning during their education period, but also during the working life. Access to formal education is something that the Finns, I think, use it continuously and to a large extent. How do we make sure that actually the low skill, those who don't use it as much as others, can actually benefit from that or can find learning opportunity for themselves? This is one of the challenges that we focus in our report, again, following the consultation, the close consultation we had with the Finnish authorities. So the first point, of course, is that, and this is the challenge for us, is because when we look at from a comparative perspective, how Finland's compare, as you know very well, Finland compares very well. Here you have one chart which looks at the share of adults with medium to high information processing skills along three dimensions of literacy, numeracy, and problem solving in a technology-rich environment. You're, of course, familiar with the PISA result, the Program for the International Assessment of Students, which actually points Finland to be at the very top performance for the 15 years old. This actually looks at the 16 to 65 years old. This is the working age population. And you can see that you're just second to Japan in terms of the higher proportion of adults who perform well both in literacy, numeracy, and in problem solving. So the starting point is certainly one that is particularly good. The level of actual knowledge and competences of the adult population in Finland is quite good. But of course, we are living in Finland, in all other OECD countries, in a rapidly changing economy. Globalization, the minister mentioned that, globalization, the digital transformation, and to some extent aging are reshaping our labor market today and will certainly reshape the labor market going forward. So on this chart on the left, we actually speculate what might happen in the future. There is a lot of ifs, a lot of question marks. We don't know really how the digital transformation will reshape our economies. But if you look at this chart, this suggests that basically a certain number of jobs may be at risk of being fully automated because most of the tasks performed in this job could potentially be performed by machine, by algorithm, by robots, by the artificial intelligence. In Finland, actually, the numbers are pretty small. You're talking about in between 8 and 9% of the job that potentially are really at risk of being fully automated, so disappearing because of that. However, I think it's important to mention this blue part of the bar. These are actually the jobs that will change dramatically because in between 50 and 70% of the tasks could be automated. The job will stay. The worker might keep that job, but the function, the task performed in this job will actually change substantially. So whatever the individual may have learned at school might no longer be adequate to actually perform the new tasks that the job will require. And that's why continuous learning becomes so important, not just for a fraction of workers, but actually I would say for the vast majority of them. The second, of course, is what is shown on the right-hand side of this chart. Of course, Finland, like many other European countries and beyond, is aging pretty rapidly. The labor force will be declined by around 200,000 people by 2050, 6% of the population. And this, of course, may potentially lead to a shortage of workers, but also shortage of tasks and competences that this worker may be able to perform. Also, this means a significant change in the demand for goods and services. There would be more demand for health services, long-term care, and so on. So the labor market is changing because of the digital transformation, because of aging, because Finland is actually fully involved into the global economy through trade and the global supply chains. Actually, if we think about the future, we don't have to speculate too much because things are already happening very clearly. So one way to look at that is to look at how the employment has been changed already over the past 2 decades or 3. You can see here that in Finland, like in other countries, we have the OECD and the Nordic countries, there has been a significant decline in the share of employment in medium skills occupations, right? You see that a significant decline, particularly in Finland, but basically across the board, and actually a significant, strong increase in high-skill occupations, as well as in some of the low-skilled occupations. Our economy is really polarizing, creating more job opportunities at the higher end of the skill distribution, as well as at the lower end to some extent, and there are differences across the board, because, again, our economy is aging, there are more services which are needed, and so on and so forth. So how do we respond to that? The fact that there is a hollowing of the middle and actually a significant polarization of the demand for skills into the top end, but also to some extent at the lower end. And what is interesting is that if we look at Finland, you can see that there is already a significant increase in the imbalances and to some extent shortages. It's actually interesting to see that there has been twice a number of occupations that are in shortages compared to just 2 years before in 2019. So the number of occupation shortages has been doubling in a matter of a few years. And there are 15 shortage occupations. They tend to be mainly on high-skill healthcare, education professions. So there's a lot of change into the labor market beyond the aggregate numbers that point to the fact that a lot of people may keep their job, may be still employed, but may have to change to some extent from one job to another, sometimes change the occupation. Much of the work that we've done at OECD, which I think is a good way to look into that, and that's why continuous learning is very important, is that we have to move away from occupation. We have to look at tasks performed within the occupation, between the jobs. If you work by occupation, some of the declining occupation and then the increasing occupation, you might think that it's impossible for me to move from one occupation to the other. If you look at what people perform, what tasks perform in this occupation, you can see that there's actually a lot of similarities. People do similar things. So mobility from one job to the other, from one occupation to the other, from the point of view of the task performed, is actually less challenging to some extent that the name of the occupation might suggest itself. But certainly there are already significant changes taking place in Finland, like in the other OECD countries. When we move into the learning, one interesting thing is that when we look at the participation in job-related education and training, actually the Finns do participate much more than most of the other OECD countries. You see that Finland is here, there's Norway, New Zealand, and Denmark, who actually was a larger share of those participating in training, but certainly among the top countries in terms of how many individuals participate in some form of job-related education and training in the previous year. In Finland, we are talking about 56% of those in employment of adults actually participate in job-related education and training every year. What is actually interesting is that people really like to do it because there is 30% of those who participate and those who did not participate but wanted to participate. So not only people do participate in a large number, but actually those who participated say, I would like to participate even more, I'd like to have more opportunity to learn more. And actually some of those who did not participate for whatever reason actually would have liked to participate. Yet there is a third, actually 35%, this is the top, of those who did not participate and did not want to participate. And that, I think, is the focus of some of the reflection that has to take place, is taking place in Finland, how we do reach out to this group of people that to some extent, either because they can't or because they don't think this would be beneficial to them, can be connected with the world of continuous learning. Finland is also interesting because compared to other countries, there is a significant fraction, and you can see that, of people participating in formal training. I think it's one of the few countries in which a lot of adults go back to education, formal education, go back to take another bachelor degree, and they spend a significant amount of time in education, even if they're already into the labor market, even if they combine that with their work experience. This is not the case in many other OECD countries, in which when you leave education, you might go back into learning, but this is more vocational training, more specialized training courses for specific activities that you might want to develop, rather than going back to formal education, even a 3 to 4 year course, which is, of course, much more demanding and much more engaging than a specific training course. There is, at the same time, because of that, there is less of what we call formal, less formal and informal training. So these are more specific tailored training opportunities to specific jobs or to develop specific vocational skills. So this strong impact, or strong, if you like, component of formal education is something which to some extent makes Finland different from what we see in a number of other countries. But behind that, I want to underline a very important point. The fact that adults go back to education, go back and get another degree and enroll in education, even formal education, to 3 to 4 years, actually simply see that the mindset is already set in the right way. People can have a good perception that they have to continue to learn during their entire working life. When I present similar reports in other countries, one of the big challenges is actually to make this cultural and to some extent mindset move into that direction. People, unfortunately, there is this notion that the life is set in phases. First you learn, you build your human capital, then you use your human capital. When you are in the labor market, and at some point you retire, you start enjoying your life. I think in Finland, at least, there is this notion that you never stop learning. And actually, because of the universal access and free access to education, people do actually continue to learn during their working life. This is certainly a major asset that makes, to some extent, a challenge that you're facing, to some extent, easier to possibly to address. Now, I'm showing you something which is in which there are a number of question marks, I would say. These are the possible returns, and it's very difficult to measure that. The returns to different type of education, informal learning, non-formal learning, and formal learning, for Finland as well as for 2 Nordic countries and the OECD, you see that there is certainly a strong positive effect of non-formal learning, which is basically learning without a specific curriculum, without a specific training path, but actually more related to some extent to the jobs. While actually in Finland, the outcomes in terms of formal as well as formal learning and informal learning tend to be slightly negative. Difficult to measure that because some of these might be related to the wage setting mechanism that might not fully reward the investment in learning and training that the individual may have gone through. But I think something we should reflect, and this is actually one of the recommendations of the report. Are the learning provided through that the individual get apt to what the labor market needs, and therefore does this have a particular return in terms of the career, the employment, but also the wages that the individual receives? Let me get into some of the main suggested recommendations, pointing to the challenges, and then what are the recommendations. We have 3 main recommendations in terms of the continuing learning provision to make it fit for the future, the first main focus of our report. One is to look at the limited alignment of adult learning with labor market needs, not least due to the lack of the strong mechanism to use skill anticipation information in the policy making, the designing also of the continuous learning programs. The second is a suboptimal financial incentive that encourage participation in formal education, such as, again, a bachelor degree, rather than non-formal and informal learning. And the third main challenges we identified is how we can address some of the gaps in learning provision, including limited upskilling opportunity for adults with vocational qualifications, and more generally, the limited availability of short courses relevant to the labor market. These are some of the recommendations we put forward. I will not list them now because actually I'm going to address one by one in my presentation. So let's start from the first challenge. The one of develop a vision for the whole continuous learning system. This is perhaps the overarching recommendation, is to develop an overall vision for the continuous learning system and the strategies about how different types of provision contribute to this whole objective. This should include a review of the linkages between the adult learning system and other policy areas, such as initial education, of course, but also a social security system that creates incentive for people to fully participate into the labor market, but also get engaged in continuous learning. And work in these areas, of course, already begun. Again, it was mentioned before, not least because of the parliamentary group that is actually reflecting precisely on these things. I'm very glad to have 3 ministers here with us at the presentation and others actually participate in this reflection. That's exactly what needs to happen. This is not just an issue for the Minister of Education, or the Minister of Employment, or the Minister of Science and Innovation. It has to be really a whole of government, a whole of country, I would say, approach. The second point is how to make the training offer more relevant for the labor market. And this includes a number of possible recommendations. One is to systematize the use of skill assessment and anticipation information for strategic planning. Do we really know what the labor market needs? And are we sure that actually the continuous learning offer to the workers is apt to actually respond to what the market needs? We all know that education is not just to basically what the market needs. We're actually having people going through education, formal education in the early phase of their life and then continuous learning to actually to improve their own human capital. But I think it is important to recognize better what the market needs. Second is to harness the capacity of employers to develop training programs. For example, introducing an employer tier sectoral committees to develop learning provision. Many OECD countries, indeed, Ireland, for example, are doing extremely good work in this area. How do we engage more with the employers to understand better what it is that they need and how we make them part of actually the design of some specific courses so that they can actually see exactly also the benefit from that. And third is actually to incentivize providers to offer training in line with the skill demand by strengthening the link between funding and the content of the training courses. In the report we highlight, including, for example, in Denmark, in which the rate of funding for courses depend on their relevance to the labor market need. So I know that this is difficult in a system with universal access to education also for adults and free access to actually start tailoring or start sort of funding specific courses that are more relevant for the labor market needs themselves. The third is how to incentivize the individual to more participate in labor market relevant training. I think this requires a lot of information on labor market relevance of the training, notably through the comprehensive online information portal that brings together information on course availability, participant outcomes and satisfaction, as well as a more general information on skills and occupation that are in high demand in the labor market. One of the good things about the digital transformation is that it makes access to information much, much easier. And indeed, a number of countries are developing digital tools to provide this information in a much easier way, actually to a wider set of individuals. Second is to review and calibrate the financial incentive to address the current bias in the incentive structure towards the participation in formal education. Finland could, for example, introduce incentives for individuals to take up training for skills in demand. So some specific incentive that actually move people or encourage people to take some specific form of training, which are more, to some extent, responding to the demand of the labor market. Again, the report offers some concrete ideas on how to implement these financial incentives, but this also was something we discussed in a previous report in 2017. The report was called Financial Incentive for Steering Education and Training. This could provide a number of specific examples for a number of the OECD countries. The third point is actually to diversify the training offer. Again, here the report highlights a number of possible options that could be considered. For example, the expansion of non-formal learning opportunities and they improve the market for such kind of provision. Again, a system which is highly dependent or highly relying on formal education, I think it could also develop other forms of non-formal learning. This, of course, must go hand in hand with the development of strong quality assurance mechanism, such as the accreditation and certification of providers and programs. That's a major challenge in many countries. As soon as you bring more the private sector, the private training providers, you have to make sure, especially in a country like Finland, where the quality of the education system is so high, that you can guarantee a certain level of quality also by those who might provide non-formal learning opportunities. Finland could also reintroduce opportunity to develop higher vocational skills beyond the level currently available. We know very well that some countries have kept high-quality technical vocational education. The usual three suspects, Austria, Germany, and Switzerland, they do offer this opportunity, and this certainly is something very important in a labor market that requires a wide range of skills and competence, including actually high-quality technical vocational occupation. Finland actually had a strong education tradition, also in vocational education, and revamping that, I think, would be something that should be considered. The third point is also to explore introducing short-cycle tertiary education in selected subject areas to diversify the learning options at the tertiary level that may be available for a number of individuals. Again, one thing is to engage in a 3-4 years bachelor degree. Another thing is to get access to maybe shorter tertiary level learning opportunities that may be linked to the labor market needs, but actually might be more accessible for those who might not be willing or able to engage in such a long 3 to 4 year bachelor course. The other challenge, and this by no means, as you can see in this chart, is unique to Finland, is how do we go about closing these gaps? This is the gap in between the share of adults in job-related education and training in the past 12 months by the level of skills. These are the adults with the low level of skills, and these are the ones with medium to high level of skills. Finland is doing well because, of course, it's on the left-hand side of this chart, but it's actually the country with the largest gap between the high skill and those with low skills. Obviously, if you look at the high skill, is among the countries with the top, in the sense that more people do participate in job-related education and learning opportunities. But actually, if you are low-skilled, the probability is certainly higher than in many other countries, but much, much lower than for those with high or medium level of skills. If we don't close this gap, we are looking at the future of labor market in which there will be more inequalities, more, to some extent, very different outcomes for those with high, medium skills and those with low level of skills. There are many reasons why people at the bottom, those with low skills, do not engage as much as those with medium, high skills. It's not just a question of what is offered to them, but it actually has to do with motivation, how you bring them in, how you actually make an offer that is something they can feel comfortable with and can actually engage with. So the second set of recommendations actually focus on that. The second point is also I want to mention is that there are a number of them who are disengaged. Here it's just the low qualified adults, again, of working age, 20 to 64. You see those in employment, those unemployed, and those inactive. This is one of the few charts I show you today in which Finland is not so well. I mean, it's placed more or less toward the right-hand side instead of being on the left-hand side, because there is a significant fraction of the low-skilled, low-qualified adults who actually are unemployed or actually completely disengaged, so they are inactive. The Finnish labor market is a competitive labor market, it's a high-demanding labor market. If for those with low level of educations, low level of skill, it is difficult to basically find your place into the labor market. A number of them are unemployed, but actually many of them might be completely disengaged. They are inactive. So what are some of the recommendations we put forward? It's very difficult. As you saw in the chart before, there is no country that does it well. The gap is there everywhere, whatever country and whatever system you're looking at. But of course, there are differences. And again, drawing from the experience of the different OECD countries, we put forward a certain number of recommendations. There are 3 blocks: the lack of targeted support for adults with low skills, the limited advice and guidance of services, and then the shortage of specific training programs. If you ask me which is the top one, in my view, this is the crucial part of the story. If we don't actually provide adequate training guidance, I think we might not recognize the low skill into the education system. So let me go through the different recommendations we put forward. In order to reach out to the adults with low skills, we suggest considering funding outreach activities which leverage existing links with the target group, engage more with the social partner, engage more with the unions, try to really have them as part of the guidance and the support, if you like, for the low-skilled. Second is that there are a number of good examples of where trade unions indeed play a key role in helping adults with low skills make informal training choices in their workplace environment. The Union Learn is a trade union program in the United Kingdom, provide a very good example of actually training thousands of union learning representatives to support the learning, to identify exactly what are their needs and therefore what kind of training opportunity may be most suitable for them. But also to reach out the adult with low skills require improved understanding of the target group by collecting, analyzing better what are some of the barriers they might be facing. This is an issue about the time. Many of them work maybe in small and medium-sized enterprise. Very difficult to be out of work. Some of them might actually be afraid to go back to the education system. Maybe the education experience was not such a good one, and the idea of going back to a classroom is something that many of them might not want to actually consider. So what is the barriers and how we address them by supporting them better? The second block has to do with how to provide comprehensive advice and guidance. Again, this is, in my view, the crucial part of the story. Many adults with low skills, the Public Employment Service is the key provider of such advice and guidance. In many countries, Public Employment Service focus most on the job seeker, not really on the employed. And it's difficult for them to provide adequate guidance and support to the many employed, low skill who might need this guidance and this support. So one of the recommendations in the report is actually to strengthen the capacity of the public employment services to be able to go beyond the usual custom or usual clients, which are the job seeker, and actually to provide some sort of support also for the employed, in particular the low skilled, but actually to acquire the skills and competence to provide the adequate guidance and support for them. Again, there are a number of examples of other countries. I think the minister mentioned the one-stop shop solution that provide comprehensive advice and guidance to specific target groups, including the young people, the migrants, and potentially the low-skilled altogether. The last point is to really consider to some extent the education offer itself. Here we recommend developing a program of tailored short courses that aim to improve motivation towards learning, sometimes called the taster courses, which have to some extent even limited emphasis on the learning outcome per se, but actually to motivate the people to engage in continuous learning. I think before you get into involving them in actual learning, it is important to engage with them, to actually convince them that they have the potential, they can, to some extent, learn more. And actually that's what they've learned during their working life is recognized, because that's the important point. Even if they have a low level of education, they might have 20 years of work experience, and they might have learned a lot on the job. So recognize the previous learning is also very important. Again, many OECD countries offer learning opportunities specifically targeted to adults with low skills. In Norway, for example, Skill Plus Work has combined basic skills and vocational training in the workplace for more than a decade. And many countries, for example, Austria, offer family literacy program where basic skill training takes place actually in kindergartens and in schools, and include free childcare services. So not really the place where you think people get some learning and training opportunities, but actually connect with other part of the life of individuals. And again, to reduce this barrier, this perception that going back to education is not something that's good for me because I didn't have particularly good experience when I was in education. Of course, there is much more in the report. This is just a snapshot of some of the main recommendations. I certainly encourage you to have a look at the report. Again, there is a short version, a longer version, and you can download it for free. But again, let me say that we are extremely pleased to be here, to have the opportunity to discuss with you. I, of course, listened with great interest to the comments by Minister Andersson, the part in English. I'm sure she was very consistent also when she was speaking in Finland in praising the OECD report. For us, it's a great pleasure to be here, but actually to contribute to a reflection, it is your own reflection, on how to make continuous learning work even better in Finland. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Director Scarpetta. I'm sure there will be lots of questions and comments from the audience later on, but now we will continue with the program, and the next one will be Minister of Employment Tuula Haatainen. Eli tervetuloa, työministeri Haatainen.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Scarpetta, for your presentation. The OECD report really examines the state of Finnish education and continuous learning from many sides. And as we heard, the report also makes many recommendations on how to safeguard the functioning and effectiveness of our education system. The timing of this publication is really perfect because the government is currently taking the first steps in the reform of continuous learning, as Minister for Education, Ms. Andersson, mentioned here. The findings and the views of the report on development measures will be very beneficial for our work in this meaning. So we all know, and it has been many times mentioned, that digitalization, challenges caused by climate change, new technologies, globalization, changes in professions and in the forms of works, as well as aging of our population, will inevitably change Finland's economic and also working life significantly. The transformation is already underway and it will accelerate in the coming decades. For us to remain competitive internationally and to maintain the current welfare state, we must look after the skills of our population and ensure that they are continuously updated. Even now, we know that hundreds of working age people in Finland either do not have the vocational training or higher education, or the education no longer provides sufficient skills to manage in the rapidly changing world of work. On the other hand, this results in prolonged unemployment and social exclusion, and in fragmentation of careers and lack of career advancement on the other. From the perspective of society and businesses, the problem is reflected in a shortage of skilled labor, which in turn leads to slowing growth and productivity, and thereby hampers also the carrying capacity of our national economy. However, that this OECD report tells us that in an international comparison, Finland's education system is very high quality and achieves good results. We are one of the most competent nations in the world, and on average we are better equipped to meet the technological changes and educational challenges than even many other developed economies. However, international comparisons over the past few years also show that other countries are investing in skill development with great results, and that's good. At the same time, Finland's results, for example, in the PISA study, are declining. The share of higher education graduates among younger age groups has also started to decrease slightly. So we cannot just take our past success for granted. We need to carefully assess the factors that have contributed to the decline in recent years and also find out what can we do to change the direction. One of the challenges we are facing is the lack of integration and opportunities for young people who only have the basic education. To address this problem, the government has launched a project to extend the compulsory education to 18 years of age. The aim is for every young person to continue to secondary education, either upper secondary school or vocational institute, after basic education and to complete a degree. At the moment, we know that 16% of this age group lacks the secondary degree, even though it has been recognized that a secondary degree at minimum is an important prerequisite for employment and participation in today's society. So we need a clear vision of how to respond to the lifelong need to develop and renew our skills. For this purpose, the government has launched a parliamentary reform where we, together with stakeholders, will create the guidelines to enable continuous learning for everyone throughout their lives. Mr. Scarpetta talked about the need for change in the mindset. and I agree. And as part of this reform, we will also create services for comprehensive lifelong guidance, which will ensure that the opportunities for continuous learning are equally available, and that the skill development is strategically guided, both from the viewpoint of the individual and as well from the point of view of the society. Within these education investments, public funding will remain the strong basis for maintaining the educational system. However, it can be supplemented in different ways with private sector resources from companies and individuals alike. We must use the resources wisely. Together with different administrative sectors, organizations and businesses, we need to anticipate better what skills will be in demand and what changes the economy and the world of work will undergo in future. There is already a great deal of such information available, but it needs to be more comprehensive and strategic to help us to allocate resources appropriately. We are currently preparing a national operating model to gather forecast data on skills and skill demands by employers, which will be used especially in directing training. The implementation of education services must be nimble and flexible. In addition to qualification-oriented education, we will increasingly need short-term complementary training and further education. These services must be implemented in a way that it enables people to develop their skills no matter of their situation. Whether they are at work or they are unemployed or partly retired, for example, the network of services provided should also be comprehensive and diverse. In addition to traditional educational institutions, we also need private institutions. Employers could also assume more responsibility for developing the skills of their employees and offering educational opportunities. So we need the mindset change everywhere. Educational content must be developed at all levels. Moreover, it must be constructed in a way that it enables individuals and employers to create tailor-made educational models that meet their needs in updating existing skills or learning new ones. We must also develop and improve access to online personal guidance and counseling services to ensure that people make use of the right educational opportunities at the best possible time. Counseling services will also help combat the gender segregation of the labor market. Digitalization does not only change the way we work, it also enables services to be offered to more and more people, regardless of the time and place. One example is Työmarkkinatori, or in English, job market, a digital platform which will offer completely new ways for employers and employees to meet. Digital tools will also be utilized by mapping and identifying skills within the public employment and business services, and as a tool in guidance and counseling. In addition, we need actively develop online learning and educational content suitable for that. This is also a way to promote Finland's education exports. Education and skill development play an important role in raising and maintaining Finland's employment rate and in solving the imbalances between supply and demand facing our labor market. High quality, timely, diverse and comprehensively available training for the right professions is a precondition for giving people of all ages and in different circumstances the opportunity to develop the skills that they are in demand in the labour market. This in turn is a requirement for a smooth transition for the labour market and employment, for people's self-fulfillment and ultimately for good life. Tässä raportissa oli monia esityksiä, jotka palvelevat sitä työtä, jota tulemme tekemään elinikäisen oppimisen vahvistamiseksi. Ja erityisesti siellä nousee esille tarve saada koulutusmahdollisuuksia, joustavia monipuolisia koulutusmahdollisuuksia niille ihmisille, joilla ei ole tutkintoa, sen enempää toisen asteen tutkintoa kuin korkeakoulututkintoa, ja myös niille ihmisille, joilla on tarvetta työelämässä, eli meillä kaikilla on tarvetta työelämässä hankkia uusia taitoja. Ja tähän nämä esitykset, joita tässä tehtiin, niin palvelevat sitä työtä, mitä teemme, kun hallitus näitä toimenpiteitä nyt sitten eteenpäin vie. Yhden asian otan esille, se, että meillä nyt Suomessa tehdään iso reformi sen suhteen, että toisen asteen koulutus tulee pakolliseksi, eli oppivelvollisuus laajenee yli toisen asteen. Uskon, että tällä pitkällä tähtäimellä tulee olemaan valtavat työllisyysvaikutukset, koska meidän nuoremme ovat paremmin valmistautuneita tulevaisuudessa muuttuviin tilanteisiin. Eli kiitän tästä työstä, mikä on tehty. I want to thank Mr. Scarpetta and the team of this report, and it is very useful in the future work that we are doing in government to make our educational system more efficient and also to make it to combine the working life and needs from the working life with the educational system. So thank you very much.
Kiitos paljon ministeri Haatainen, ja seuraavana vuorossa sitten tiede- ja kulttuuriministeri Hanna Kosonen. Ole hyvä.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear Mr. Scarpetta, Miss Mercourt, there is an old saying in Finnish that goes like this: what you learn as a child, you master in old age. In today's world, it should perhaps be something along the lines of what you learn as a child, you need to learn to do in a new way in old age. The OECD study on continuous learning in Finland was carried out of this reason. Globalization, technological change and population aging are affecting the types of jobs we will have in Finland in the future and how they will be performed. The transformation of the world of work applies not only to young people who just about to enter the labor market, but also to those of us who are already in working life. It's no longer enough to have once learned things at school. Upskilling and reskilling are now becoming imperative. We must be ready for this as individuals, but also as a society. The proposed policy recommendations of the OECD report are justified, some even quite bold. We will examine them thoroughly and will to look into the benefits of the recommendation and how to apply them. In my own comments, I will focus in particular on continuous learning in higher education. By law, universities and universities of applied sciences must provide opportunities for continuous learning in the performance of their duties. In the funding models that will enter into force next year, the resources for continuous learning will increase. The foundations for higher education institutions to respond to the skills development needs of the working age populations are therefore in place. However, we still have work to do to ensure that continuous learning can gain the strong position it deserves in higher education institutions and in a position that is essential for the viewpoint of society. In Finland, those with a university degree participate actively in adult education, as we saw, which is good. The report clearly highlights the fact that demand, especially for high-level skills, already exists in the labor market, and this need will grow even more in the future. Our own National Forum for Skills Anticipation has delivered exactly the same message. It's clear that we need more university graduates and more continuous learning geared for higher education graduates. However, this alone is not enough. Difficult words. Higher education institutions should offer suitable opportunities for developing skills for all, including those who do not have a university degree. This can be seen as a question of equality, but it's also essential for improving the quality of working life and employment. In working life, in many jobs, there is growing need for the very skills that tertiary education focuses on, such as critical thinking, understanding and solving complex problems, analytical skills, and so on. We also need these skills to meet everyday challenges, from handling e-services to managing the torrent of information and identifying misleading information. In the best case, the skills that tertiary education provides are ones that safeguard job prospects in the transformation of work and in the changing world of work, which, according to the report, also affect many jobs in Finland. Moreover, these high-level skills not only help to adapt to changes, but also to shape work and create new work. Hyvät ystävät, niin kuin tässä selvityksessä on sanottu, niin on kiinnitettävä huomiota tietenkin tärkeisiin perustaitoihin ja yleistaitoihin, mutta siihen, että jatkuva oppiminen vastaa paremmin työelämän erityisiin tarpeisiin. Koulutuksen ja oppimisen työelämärelevanssia on parannettava ja oppimisen on todella kohdistuttava niihin taitoihin, joille on kysyntää ja tarvetta. Ja tämä on hyvin erilaista niin eri aloilla kuin eri alueilla ja kaikkiin näihin meidän tulisi vastata. Kohtaanto-ongelmasta meillä puhutaan paljon. Ja niin kuin herra Scarpetta tuossa hyvässä esitelmässään kertoi, niin digitaalisilla apuvälineillä hyvin voidaan parantaa tätä kohtaanto-ongelmaa. Ja se antaa myös paljon hyviä mahdollisuuksia oppia ja opiskella eri asuinpaikasta ja työpaikasta riippumatta, sen sijainnista riippumatta. Ja meillä onkin hallitusohjelmassa tärkeänä tavoitteena tämä koulutuksen saavuttavuus, mikä myös lisää tasa-arvoa ja yhdenvertaisuutta. Digital tools can also make studying more flexible and personalized both for the learners and for workplaces, and in the best case bring new enthusiasm into studying. Higher education institutions have already taken up this challenge together and separately, and I encourage them to do so in future too. Ideally, the digital vision for higher education could be implemented as a jointly managed and coordinated network of higher education institutions, in which all parts work towards a common goal. Dear friends, one further point I would like to draw attention to is how to maintain and improve the skills of older workers, those aged over 55. As observed in the report, the aging of the population may widen the skills gap in Finland. As many of us know, the government has ambitious employment targets. There is a good deal of employment potential among those who are over 55 years old. Learning and education not only improve knowledge and skills that are important for staying in working life, but also help sustain work motivation and provide future prospects. Higher education institutions are excellent places for learning for both purposes. They provide information on the latest achievements in science and research and the most inspiring innovations, as well as opportunities for skills development based on them. Learning opportunities for all the people to develop their own skills and stay at work for longer than before is a major human and social issue. Hyvät kuulijat, jatkuvan oppimisen uudistus on hyvässä vauhdissa, mutta työtä riittää edelleen ja sitä riittää, kuulkaa, pitkään. Ja tänään julkistettava raportti antaa paljon meille ajattelemisen aihetta ja hyvän pohjan tälle työn jatkamiselle. Tämä jatkuvan oppimisen uudistus on todella jatkuva uudistus. Dear Mr. Scarpetta, dear Ms. Merkort, I want to warmly thank you for this review. It gives us much to think about and a good basis for our reform of continuous learning. We do indeed need an overarching vision, and we have to make continuous learning more relevant to the labor market, taking into account especially the growing need for higher level skills, just to mention a few examples from the review. I'm sure we will examine your more specific recommendations thoroughly too. Again, thank you very much.
Kiitos ministeri Kosonen. Ja siltä varalta, että ministereillä ei ole mahdollisuutta ihan loppuun saakka täällä olla, niin haluan nyt jo kiittää kaikkia kolmea ministeriä osallistumisesta ja hyvistä ja tärkeistä kommenteista tähän selvitykseen ja itse asiaan, eli jatkuvaan oppimiseen. Kiitoksia. Mutta nyt jatketaan kommenttipuheenvuoroilla ja ensimmäisenä Riikka Heikinheimo EK:sta. Ole hyvä.
Kiitoksia. Thank you ministers, Andersson, Kosonen and Haatainen. Thank you OECD, Mr. Scarpetta and Ms. Meyercord. And thank you everybody. This report is actually really timely. The thing that our members have reported lately, or actually already for some time, has been that the major obstacle why they cannot reach growth at the moment, so companies that cannot grow, the major problem is the lack of skilled labor force. And it really has become a problem in Finland, and it probably will increase as a problem. We all know what's happening with the birth rate in Finland, and the number of Finns is decreasing. So in that sense, I warmly welcome this report. I warmly welcome the work that we are doing in Finland at the moment. So we are timely trying to find solutions how to go forward. I actually very much welcome the idea of this report underlining so much the labour market relevance, both in providing education and also in foresighting when we are trying to predict beforehand what is needed in the working life in the future. So that's also very important. I will give most of my comments in Finnish, but then I have one comment for you, Mr. Scarpetta, about how to measure the phenomenon called continuous learning in working life. Kiitos tästä raportista. Täällä nämä haasteet, jotka on tunnistettu, en oikeastaan olisi yhdestäkään yhtään eri mieltä. Rajatut mahdollisuudet työelämärelevanttiin osaamisen kasvattamiseen, kannusteet, koulutuksen tarjonta, sen epäsynkroni paikoitellen sen kanssa, että mikä on työelämän tarve, ennakoinnin yhteys, yhteys tai parempi yhteys siihen, että mitkä on ne tulevaisuuden tarpeet, niin nämä on kaikki asioita, joita tiedämme. Ja sitten täällä on tämä erityinen ongelma, joka liittyy henkilöihin, joilla ei ole välttämättä ennestään niin suuria osaamisia edeltä käsin ja kuinka he sitten aikanaan pystyvät tai parhaillaan pystyvät sitten hakeutumaan koulutukseen ja onko tarjolla koulutusta, joka oikeasti sitten heille sopii. Ajattelin nostaa täältä, tai oikeastaan en käy näitä suosituksia yksityiskohtaisesti läpi. Täällä on paljon, josta voidaan olla samaa mieltä ja varmasti parlamentaarisessa jatkuvan oppimisen ryhmässä, missä itsekin olen edustettuna, niin käymme yksityiskohtaisemmin läpi näitä. Voin vain sanoa sen, että meidän kaikissa kyselyissä jatkuvasti nousee esiin yritysten toive siitä, että oppilaitokset oman tarjoamansa osalta olisivat aktiivisemmin yhteydessä yrityksiin ja kertoisivat, mitä heillä tällä hetkellä on tarjolla. Nimittäin se tarjoama, mikä tässäkin raportissa todetaan, että on yksilön kannalta hiukan epäselvä, niin se on sitä myös työnantajan kannalta. Eli aina ei tiedetä, mitä oikeastaan on tarjolla. Jos puhutaan henkilöistä, jotka joilla ei ole sitä toisen asteen tutkintoa, niin on tärkeää muistaa se, että silläkin on merkitystä, että ovatko he työssä vai työn ulkopuolella. Ja tiedämme meidän omista kyselyistä, että ne henkilöt, jotka ovat ilman toisen asteen tutkintoa, mutta ovat työelämässä, niin heille aika usein itse asiassa työnantaja huolehtii tämän toisen asteen tutkinnon osana sitä työelämää. Me olemme yhdessä työmarkkinakeskusjärjestöjen kanssa katsoneet tätä asiaa tarkemmin ja jo muutama vuosi sitten kävimme käsiksi aikuiskoulutustukeen, joka on yksi itse asiassa aika merkittävä tapa Suomessa, joka on työntekijöiden ulottuvissa. Ja kävimme käsiksi tuohon aikuiskoulutustukeen ja mietimme, että millä tavalla sitä voitaisiin parantaa niin, että se sopisi erityisesti tälle ryhmälle, jolla motivaatio koulutukseen ei aikanaan ole ollut niin kovin suuri. Ja neuvottelimme silloin ehdotuksen, jossa ideana nimenomaan oli se, että kuinka aikuiskoulutustukea uudistetaan niin, että se paremmin sopii henkilöille, joilla ei ole sitä toisen asteen tutkintoa ja että he voisivat suorittaa koulutusta osana työelämää. Ja tämä uudistus on tulossa nyt toivottavasti tämän vuoden aikana sitten käytäntöön ja aikanaan näemme, toimiiko se oikeasti kannustimena. Mutta toinen puoli siinä, että on saatavilla sitä rahoitusta, jonka turvin voi kouluttautua, niin toinen puoli siinä tarinassa on se, että onko tarjontaa, joka sopii näille henkilöille. Ja tässä mielessä on äärimmäisen tärkeää, että ammatillisen koulutuksen reformi, joka Suomessa on käynnissä, niin viedään loppuun ja että ammatillinen koulutus erityisesti pystyy tarjoamaan sellaisia pienempiä paloja, tutkinnon osia, jotka ovat työelämärelevantteja ja jotka ovat mielenkiintoisia ja näiden henkilöiden ulottuvissa. Ajattelin muutaman asian tästä samasta aihepiiristä vielä nostaa esille. Olen nyt korostetusti käynyt alkuvuonna jäsenyritystemme luona. Ja tosiasia on, että työtä on tarjolla myös niille, joilla ei ole toisen asteen tutkintoja. Ja kun yritysten luona käy, niin tosiaan tämä havainto siitä, että työvoimasta on pula, niin se on hyvin voimakas, mutta tämä pula on hyvin monenlaisesta työvoimasta. On pulaa niistä ihmisistä, jotka osaa tosi paljon, ja on pulaa niistä, jotka osaa paljon, ja sitten on pulaa niistä, jotka ovat valmiita tulemaan töihin. Eli kun puhutaan tästä 300 000 tai 600 000 työmarkkinoilla tai yhteiskunnassamme olevasta henkilöstä, niin kannattaa myös miettiä sitä, että ovatko he töissä tällä hetkellä vai ovatko he työelämän ulkopuolella. Ja ne toimenpiteet, joita heille voidaan suositella ja heille voidaan tehdä, niin ne ovat hiukan erilaisia riippuen siitä, että mikä on se heidän tämänhetkinen statuksensa. Ja varmasti tätä keskustelua pitää jatkaa, että mikä on se tarjoama, mikä on se oikea tarjoama heille. Tällä hetkellä kentältä tulee paljon esimerkiksi havaintoja siitä, että on työvoimakoulutusta, sitä on tarjolla, mutta siihen ei ole hakijoita. Ja tämä on kuitenkin samaan aikaan tilanne, kun meillä on työttömyyttä Suomessa. Että jotain osuvuudessa vielä tällä hetkellä menee hiukan harhaan. Ja meillä ei ehkä ole Suomessa varaa siihen. Mutta muutama havainto sitten. Täällä on yhtenä suosituksena on ollut nämä lyhyemmät tutkinnot, lyhyemmät korkeakoulututkinnot. En tiedä, onko tämä oikeasti Suomelle se reitti vai onko paremminkin Suomelle se reitti, että pidetään koko koulutusjärjestelmästä huolta sen kaikilla tasoilla ja huolehditaan siitä, että riippumatta, että mille tasolle asti yksilö menee, niin saa hyvää ja laadukasta koulutusta ja tämä koulutusjärjestelmä on joustava. Mutta jos tähän keskusteluun halutaan lähteä, niin silloin siinä tapauksessa se täytyy tehdä kyllä koulutuksen tarjoajien ja työnantajien kanssa tiiviissä yhteistyössä, ettei sitten menetetä tämän uudistuksen myötä mitään kallisarvoista, joka meillä hyvin toimii. Itse hiukan mietin ja vierastan tätä jatkuvan oppimisen systeemi tai järjestelmäsanaa. Se voi olla tietenkin vain tapa, jolla me halutaan kuvata, että meidän pitää tämä ilmiö ottaa hanskaan, mutta mitään systeemiä en oikein usko, että me tarvitaan, vaan me tarvitaan se hyvä koulutusjärjestelmä, joka jokaisella tasollaan on kunnossa ja me tiedetään kaikki, että peruskouluvaihe on tällä hetkellä se, joka varmasti eniten tarvitsee huomiota. Sitten on tuo ammatillisen koulutuksen reformin loppuun vieminen ja nyt tällä hetkellä me ollaan ainakin viestitty korkeakouluille siitä jatkuvan oppimisen tarjonnan tarvetta, eli sitä kannattaisi kehittää. Ja tiedän, että korkeakoulut tällä hetkellä sitä kehittääkin. Mutta jos jotain systeemiä tarvitaan, niin ehkä se systeemi sitten pitäisi olla sen osaamisen tunnustamisen systeemi. Sitähän meillä ei erillisenä ole, mutta se voisi olla sellainen kohta, josta sitten ehkä olisi hyötyä. Then I have one comment for you, Mr. Scarpetta. When we are dealing in this skills area, it's very difficult to see what's happening in companies. And we tend to measure what we can measure. We are not necessarily measuring what's happening within the companies. And therefore it's really, really important to understand what's happening in companies. Knowing that, we just on last Friday, we published a report where 6 forerunning companies in Finland are describing themselves with their own words what's happening in their organizations under the term continuous learning. And I can guarantee that there's a lot happening. And for you at OECD, it would be really, really beneficial for all of us if you somehow could look into the companies and describe what's happening. Because if we are following wrong statistics that is not giving the full picture, then we may draw wrong conclusions. Thank you. Kiitokset.
No niin, kiitoksia Riikka. Ja seuraavana sitten Taina Wallander STTK:sta, ole hyvä.
Kiitos. Arvoisat ministerit ja hyvät jatkuvasta oppimisesta innostuneet kuulijat. Kiitän mahdollisuudesta kommentoida tätä OECD-raporttia jatkuvasta oppimisesta. And I also want to thank you for the OECD section of education skills for the excellent work you're doing and for your recommendations, which are very well in parallel with my own STTK's own ones. STTK on hyvin ilahtunut siitä, että OECD on tarttunut raportissaan niin voimakkaasti tähän työikäisten osaamistason nostoon, koska Se on meidän yksi keskeisimmistä työelämän kehittämisen tavoitteista. Kuten tässä aamupäivän aikana on todettu, niin työelämän osaamisvaatimukset kasvavat ja digitalisaation ja ilmastonmuutoksen kaltaiset megatrendit muuttavat työn tekemisen tapoja. Ja muutos koskettaa tavalla tai toisella kaikkia toimialoja, työpaikkoja ja työntekijöitä. Työmarkkinoiden polarisaatio näkyy erityisesti keskipalkkaisten töiden osuuden suhteellisena vähenemisenä. Ja tästä syystä osaamistason noston tarpeellisuus ei koske vain kaikkein matalammin koulutettuja suomalaisia, vaan aivan kaikkia koulutettuja ammattilaisia. Pidämme STTK:ssa erittäin tärkeänä, että hallituksen käynnistävä jatkuvan oppimisen parlamentaarinen uudistus johtaa nykyistä strategisempaan työhön jatkuvan oppimisen mahdollisuuksien edistämiseksi. Suomessa on lähtökohdiltaan hyvä koulutusjärjestelmä, jonka osallistumisaste on kansainvälisesti verrattain korkea. Nyt meidän on rehellisesti pohdittava, onko järjestelmä myös tulevaisuuden kestävä, eli future proof, ja riittääkö se pitämään huolta Suomen hyvinvoinnista, kilpailukyvystä, tuottavuudesta ja osaamisesta, kun osaamisen kehittämisen tarve on tunnistettu myös lähes kaikkialla muualla maailmassa. Uusien tutkintoportaiden sijaan meidän tulisi vahvistaa tutkintojen modulaarisuutta ja lisätä joustavia tapoja täydentää osaamista. Tämä tematiikka on hyvin tässä parlamentaarisessa työssä jo tunnistettu. Tulevaisuudessa on yhä tärkeämpää pystyä yhdistämään työ ja oppiminen sekä huomioida myös erilaiset tavat oppia. Oppisopimuskoulutus on toiminut hyvin ammatillisella toisella asteella ja nyt meillä olisi erinomainen mahdollisuus pohtia oppisopimusmallia korkea-asteen koulutuksessa. Konkreettinen tapa edetä olisi käynnistää pilotteja esimerkiksi työvoimapulasta kärsivillä ja nopeasti muuttuvilla aloilla. Otan esimerkiksi varhaiskasvatuksen. OECD kiinnittää huomiota myös ammatillisen tutkinnon suorittaneiden muita heikompiin mahdollisuuksiin nostaa omaa osaamistasoaan. Ja yksi tapa parantaa näitä mahdollisuuksia olisi meidän mielestämme vahvistaa erikoisammattitutkintojen asemaa tutkintojärjestelmässä. Se vaatisi ammatillisen koulutuksen ja ammattikorkeakoulujen tiiviimpää yhteistyötä tutkintojen järjestämisessä ja kehittämisessä. Keskustelu rahasta on ollut Suomessa myös tämän jatkuvan oppimisen rahoituksen osalta vaikeaa. Viime viikolla työnantajajärjestö linjasi, että yritykset eivät ole valmiita lisäämään rahoitusosuuttaan jatkuvan oppimisen kustannuksista. Vastakkainasettelun vahvistaminen ei valitettavasti auta ratkaisemaan Suomea vaivaavaa osaajapulaa. OECD-raportissa kiinnitetään aivan oikein huomiota siihen, että tällä hetkellä Suomi jää koulutusinvestoinneissa muista maista jälkeen. Vaikka yritysten rooli osaamisen rahoittamisessa on merkittävä, yritysten panostukset jäävät meillä EU-maiden keskiarvon alapuolelle. Yksilön näkökulmasta koulutukseen käytetty aika on merkittävä investointi, jolle on vaikea laskea hintalappua. Myös yhteiskunta tekee yritysten osaamisen kehittämisen osalta merkittäviä kädenojennuksia. Esimerkiksi avoin ammattikorkeakouluopetus on jopa yrityksen henkilöstön tarpeisiin räätälöitynä ilmaista. Suomessa tiedämme, että mahdollisuudet osallistua osaamiseen kehittämiseen työajalla jakautuvat hyvin epätasaisesti. Osaamisen systemaattisessa ja ennakoivassa kehittämisessä on työpaikoilla vielä paljon parannettavaa. Nykytilanteessa osaamisen kehittäminen ei ole aina suunnitelmallista, henkilöstö- ja koulutussuunnitelmia ei tehdä ja osaamisen kehittäminen jakautuu epätasaisesti henkilöstöryhmien kesken. Vähiten koulutettujen pääsy koulutukseen on työuran aikana kaikkein vähäisintä, kuten OECDkin toteaa. Näkisin, että meillä on yhteinen haaste pohtia, miten asenteita muutetaan ja motivaatiota rakennetaan niin työntekijä- kuin työnantajapuolellakin oppimismyönteisemmäksi kaikissa työntekijäryhmissä ja kaikilla toimialoilla. Jatkuvan oppimisen järjestelmältä edellytetään tulevaisuudessa hyvin joustavaa kykyä tuottaa koulutusta erilaisiin tarpeisiin. Nykyisin noin 5000 ulkomaan kansalaista suorittaa Suomessa vuosittain korkeakoulututkinnon. STTK ja Arene ovat ottaneet kantaa että tämä määrä pitäisi nelinkertaistaa ja valmistuneista valtaosa tulisi jatkossa saada työllistymään Suomeen. Suomi tarvitsee tulevaisuudessa myös enemmän kansainvälisiä osaajia, jotka täydentävät omaa olemassa olevaan tutkintoaan vastaamaan suomalaisen työelämän edellytyksiä. Tämä suomalaisen työmarkkinan kansainvälistyminen on välttämätöntä, jotta voimme vastata väestörakenteen muutokseen ja huoltosuhteen haasteisiin, ja näihin kysymyksiin myös jatkuvan oppimisen järjestelmän pitää pystyä tulevaisuudessa vastaamaan. Kiitos.
No niin, paljon kiitoksia. Ja jatketaan Teemu Kokko Haakaheliasta, ole hyvä.
Distinguished ministers, Director Stefana Carpetto, Mrs. Anne Mayorgård, ladies and gentlemen. This country review is quite an extensive package, and basically you state the well-known strengths of Finland, PISA success and so forth. And the question is that how to maintain these elements also in the future as we have a decreasing nativity, digital transformation and so forth. You extremely well also identify our challenges, the dominance of formal education, in some cases a low working life relevance, and then big differences when you compare the educated and less educated people. I also find it extremely good that you have two big areas that you represent recommendations for. Firstly, making the system of continuous learning fit for future, and the second part is to increase the participation of less educated people. Altogether, you give 13 recommendations, and they are quite pragmatic, which I find a very positive thing. You also suggest that we should have a vision and strategy for continuous learning. We all know that that work is on way, and that's of course extremely important for the future of Finland. I have three major comments, and I state them shortly in English, and then I elaborate them little bit in Finnish. Firstly, you state you stress extremely strongly the importance of the continuous learning of less educated, and that's of course important. We all know the challenges with marginalization and exclusion, but this should not mean that we neglect the continuous learning of well-educated people. Eli tässä painopisteraportissa on aika vahvasti niin kuin vähemmän koulutetuissa, ja me kaikki ymmärretään, että se on suuri ongelma Suomessa, mutta samaan aikaan niin meidän pitää muistaa se, että myöskin hyvin koulutettujen jatkuvasta oppimista pitää huolta. Meillä on työvoimapulaa, ja työelämän looginen vastaus on tuottavuuden lisääminen, ja tämä edellyttää lisää korkeakoulutettuja ihmisiä, ja kaikki osaamistarpeen ennakointi kertoo samaa viestiä. Kyseessä on siis kahden rintaman taistelu. Vähemmän koulutettujen koulutustason nostaminen ja toisaalta hyvin koulutettujen koulutustason nosto edelleen. Ja molemmilla rintamilla pitää pystyä toimimaan. My second comment is about working life relevance, and actually I'm a little bit more optimistic than what you state in your report. Maybe it's because I'm a president of a University of Applied Sciences, and I feel that we are quite working life relevant. Eli ainakin ammattikorkeakoulun näkökulmasta niin voi sanoa, että tätä jatkuvaa oppimista on tehty todella pitkään. Ja ihan esimerkkinä omassa korkeakoulussani Haagaheliassa niin 30% opiskelijoista on aikuisopiskelijoita. Ja koen, että se on nimenomaan sitä jatkuvaa oppimista. Olen selvityksen kanssa täysin samaa mieltä siitä, että ammatillisen toisen asteen ja ammattikorkeakoulun yhteistyötä pitää entisestään lisätä. Tämä on todella tärkeää, mutta en pidä hyvänä sitä, että ruvetaan rakentamaan uusia rakenteita nykyisten rakenteiden päälle tai lisäksi. Eli pidän tehokkaammalla sitä, että tehdään yhteistyötä tekemällä. Tarvitsemme pikemminkin tekoja kuin hallintohimmeleitä. Mun mielestä se on niin kuin lähtökohta. My third comment is actually a simple one. Also, continuous learning is a work of professionals. And it's very important that our professionalism is used in that area as well. Eli on todella syytä tiedostaa, että koulutus on ammattilaisten hommaa, ja kannattaa hyödyntää sitä hyvää osaamista Suomessa. Tälläkin hetkellä löytyy sekä toisella että kolmannella ja tietysti myöskin ensimmäisellä asteella. Ja kauhuskenaario olisi se, jos jatkuvasta oppimisesta tulisi konsulttien temmellyskenttä. Ja jos siitä tulisi joku irrallinen ja ulkopuolinen osa meidän koulutusjärjestelmän tavallaan niin kuin lisäksi. Myöskin ehkä rehtorina haluan todeta sen, että kyllähän korkeakoulussa on aika hikiset oltavat tälläkin hetkellä, kun meiltä edellytetään koko ajan tutkintomäärien kasvua ja sitten uutena tehtävänä on siinä tullut tämä tärkeä jatkuva oppiminen. Ja niin kuin hyvin tiedämme, niin tämä kaikki tehdään ilman niin kuin merkittävää rahoituspohjan lisäystä. Että kyllä tämä niin kuin aika taiteilua suoraan sanottuna on. Ja ehkä sitten totean vielä, että aika hyviä kokemuksia on siitä, että tutkintorakenteesta niin irrotetaan irrallisia moduuleita, pienempiä osia, jotka toimivat joko sellaisenaan tai ovat sitten tarvittaessa isomman kokonaisuuden, eli siis tutkinnon osia. Eli ihan kokonaan ei tätä pyörää kannata keksiä. Finally, I just want to thank for this very extensive report and I would say that you have been able to create a very good understanding of the Finnish system, which I value highly. So thank you very much. Kiitoksia oikein paljon.
Kiitos. Ja vielä Hanna Virtanen Etlasta, ole hyvä.
Kiitos. Well, thank you for the opportunity to comment on this well-written report. It was a pleasure to read it, and it provides comprehensive view on what we know about adult learning in Finland. So I agree basically with everything that's written there. So I just try to add something to the recommendations. There might be something a little bit provocative. It's not my aim per se, but I still think we need to discuss about the foundations as well thoroughly now that we're creating this overall strategy. So it's been discussed already here, the main findings based on the pieces of information and numbers. Basically, there are two characteristics of the Finnish adult learning. Firstly, the participation rate is already high, but it might be that there are some inefficiencies in the system. So firstly, adults, the system sort of favors formal over non-formal learning, and there's little distinction between youth and adult learners, which typically means that often adults participate in the initial education that's actually designed for the needs of young people. So there can be features that provide education to become full members of the society and so on, that might not be that necessarily targeted for adults. Adults may need more labor market relevant, direct, particular skills from their education. Second sort of inefficiency can be created by because the opportunity costs for adults are significantly higher than for young individuals. So, for example, studying for full-time for 4-year degree can create significant labor market losses and also losses of tax revenues. So this could be a sort of a challenge to make the system more efficient. That's been also, I think it's in line with the recommendations in the report. And then the second big characteristic or challenge is the lower participation rate of those with low skills. And this is even though there's hardly any costs from participating, and even though there are a wide range of support available. So there's something not adding up here. So how to make the system more efficient? So I think we seriously need to consider introducing tuition fees for adults. So there are definitely issues that need to be considered. This should be thought through, but the benefits of this could be that there would be more incentives to design shorter courses targeted better to suit the needs of adults. So this could improve the education availability of education alternatives, and secondly, it could free resources for young individuals, which we desperately need more. And this is also something to improve the future learning of the young individuals now. So there would be also consequences from these positive consequences through this channel. But this is now too late for sort of those who are adults now. So we didn't have the more resources available for them when they were young. So how could we increase the participation there? So it seems to me at least obvious that pouring more money into the system isn't necessarily the answer. We already provide free education and financial support. So I think we don't know what are the barriers. So I think there's huge lack of information on why a third of adult population is not willing to participate, even though they would benefit from participating to education significantly. So I think we need to find out more. And I think this calls for qualitative research, especially, to figure out if it's the information that's lacking or if it's the bad experiences. And if it's the bad experiences, how can we overcome these issues? And then we need quantitative research to test what works. So I think the best sort of approach could be that we identify a few possible solutions and then we test them in randomized field experiments, what sort of provides the answers. So I think we need definitely more information and innovations to provide better education alternatives and opportunities for adults. So there's an ongoing project, Urban Growth Chip Vantaa, where we are sort of trying to start doing something like this. So I think the first project will be definitely learning experience, and hopefully we'll get some results in a year or two, and we'll be discussing them later then. Okay, thank you.
No niin, kiitos paljon kommenteista, jotka toi kyllä hyvin erilaisiakin näkökulmia tähän selvitykseen ja itse asiaan, eli taas jatkuvaan oppimiseen. Nyt olen sitten vielä, vaikka tässä on tullut aika paljon ajattelemisen aihetta ja pitkään jo kuultu ja aivonystyröitä hierottu, niin nyt olisi mahdollisuus vielä kommentoida tai kysyä muilta, mutta myöskin sitten OECD-edustajilta. So now there is some time for questions and comments, if it's okay for the Mr. Scarpetta and Meyercord. So Päivi tuolta tuo sitten mikrofonia, tarvittaessa tuolla on heti ensimmäinen. Joo. Viekö Päivi tuonne vaikka siellä ensimmäiseksi?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the very enlightening presentations to you all and the good comments. The question I have, I'm Ville Tynkkynen from the Student Union of Tampere University, and I'd like to ask, I understand that the report focuses really on the skills required in the working life, but I think we would also need this larger image of how we could develop this lifelong learning of there's really not a good word in English, but sivistys in Finnish or civiltà in Italian or Bildung in German, like these skills needed for citizenship and understanding the world around you, empathy, such skills, which aren't really as such connected to certain professions, but the overall living in society.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Maybe, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for this question. I will maybe address also some of the other comments that were made, which I thought was a very interesting panel discussion. I think I fully agree with you. Sometimes we think about education and continuous learning in a sort of sectorial or silo way, right? So we learn for what the labor market needs, or we learn for developing our human capital, which goes beyond what the market needs. And I think it's a continuum of that. So I think in Finland there is no question that there is this notion, this culture, this mindset about continuously learning and improving your human capital. And the fact that so many people actually go back to take another bachelor degree, it's just this wish, this desire to continue to improve your human capital, going beyond what the labor market may need. I think the focus of the report is that what can be done to better provide information about the way in which the labor market is evolving so that people can make a better choice, at least an informed choice about what may be useful for them in order to navigate a labor market will offer many opportunities, but actually will raise a number of challenges, right? So by no means by the focus on the labor market means disinvesting on broader courses that actually build who we are, our culture, our human capital. You also mentioned empathy, right, which is an important element. And this is an issue, I think, in many countries in which the formal education system might not help you acquire these soft skills, sometimes called, which all employers claim become more and more important in the world of work we're living in and we will be living going forward. And there again is where actually content and basically sharing work experience with learning experience, I think, is particularly important. But let me make it very clear, we should remove this notion of a silo. We learn for one thing and not for the other. I think it's a continuum. And I think why Finland, in my view, is doing well on one, I think has to perhaps offer a more diversified offer of learning that also takes into account and provide information about what the labor market needs and what kind of training courses or learning opportunity actually will allow people to acquire these skills which are needed. Now, if I can spend just a couple of minutes on the other important point that were made, the one that, and in particular the question that were raised, I think there was a point about do we really know what happened within the company? And the answer is no. I think I fully agree with you on that. So we know from how individuals respond to the questionnaire. I mean, the data I show you are the one from the adult skills survey of the OECD. So this is a household survey. We ask individuals, did you participate in training? What kind of training did you participate in? Would you like to get more involvement in training or not? And so on and so forth. This is for the perspective of the workers. We don't really know much about how this non-formal training was provided. And what were the barriers? Why employers did not invest even more? There's a lot going on. I fully agree with you. In that, let me just open a bracket because that's an important one. As you may know, we are moving to the second cycle of PIAC, so the Adult Skills Survey. We'll actually go into the field trial this year and then will be developed next year. We at OECD, working together with you, develop a module, an employer module, which is associated with PIAC. These are a few questions, 4 or 5 questions that could be attached to an employer survey. And actually for the European country, this will go to the CVTS, the Continuous Vocational Training Survey. Now, unfortunately, Finland did not choose to participate and to actually have the CVTS with this module on employer. That's essential because this will tell us from the employer point of view, what are they doing and what are some of the barriers to actually invest more on the human capital and the talent of their companies. So I think this is an opportunity. It's very small cost. It's only a few questions, but will tell us something about the demand side of actually of the skill needs. Let me be very clear. The colleague from the University of Applied Science, actually we mentioned your university in our report itself. Indeed, there are a number of institutions that have a very good contact with the labor market and actually provide tailored courses. So by no means is black and white again. The point is that, again, 3-4 year bachelor degree is a big investment and also is a very competitive process to be accepted into these courses, which might to some extent put some of the low skill at a disadvantage, either because they don't have the time to invest so much or because they know they will never be accepted into these courses. So I think a diversification, again, of the learning offer, in my view, is very important. I think there was also an important point. Well, the focus on the low skill should not be at the expense of the high skill. It goes without saying this is absolutely the case. Again, it's not that we have to disinvest on what is a good and well-functioning system, whereby the medium-high skill people do invest a lot in their own human capital. But I think a focus on the low skill, I think it's very important. So one does not go against the other one. I think the idea of introducing a tuition fees for adults is a big issue, because you don't want to undermine this notion, this, again, mindset of which people do invest and do continuously learn and so on and so forth. On the other hand, devoting more resources to maybe short-term courses, more tailored courses for the low skill, in my view, it's very important. The last point here, guidance. I think if we want really to close the gap that I show you, I think we really have to provide very tailored support, even before access to training itself, actually guidance, recognition of prior learning, support on how to approach the system, what are the offers in terms of learning that may be more suitable for the low skill. So this guidance to support and the one-stop shop, in my view, is one of the key challenges, and I think the key way to basically reduce this gap that we were showing before.
Thank you. So, next Riikka, and then there will be another one.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I was going to ask exactly what you ended with, because we seem to struggle with a motivation problem here in Finland. We are talking about people who are not motivated to be educated, and I was wondering, since you see the situation in different OECD countries, can you give good examples where this problem would have been solved? Good case studies or examples, benchmarks?
No, thank you for this question. I mean, as I showed you before in the chart, the gap in between access to formal and informal learning opportunities between the low skill and high skill is there everywhere. So there is no single country in the OECD that has no gap. The gap is actually particularly large in Finland, but is there just in each and every of the OECD countries. I think, again, I go back to the point I was mentioning before, is, again, recognize what are the barriers and the lack of motivation for some workers at the low skill. Again, I think the continuous learning system in Finland is a competitive one, is one that may be, to some extent, difficult to achieve or to get to for someone with low level of skills, or someone with not a particularly good experience in the formal education period of their life. So the guidance and the support, I think, is very important. I think the guidance has to go both ways. On the one hand, it should go to the individual. There is no question about it. On the other hand, it should also go to the employers, not the large companies. They know very well that they have to invest in the human capital of their workforce, but actually for the small and medium-sized enterprise, for whom having someone spending some time on training might be more problematic, right? So a number of countries are developing the guidance not only to the workers, but actually to the managers of the, not the large, but the small and medium-sized companies, and also providing, again, complementary resources for those who stay away from work for a period of time, right? Because it's not just the fact that access to continuous learning is free or almost free in Finland, is that there is also foregone earnings if you are away from work and you don't, of course, earn, and that's an issue. And there is a problem for the company, because, you know, having a worker being away for 6 months or more from a very tiny company of 10 employees is a major challenge. So I think when I talk about guidance, it's actually working on both sides. Use more and use as much as possible the unions, the social partners, the employee association, but also the unions, in order to actually provide the guidance, engage with them, also in the design of the short-term vocational training courses which are on offer for, again, not only for the low skilled, but I would say mainly for the low skilled. Otherwise, this gap will not be closed, and this might address the motivation on both sides, I think, on the side of the employers and also on the side of the employees. But again, I go back to the point, we should know more what happened within the company, what happened in the workplace, and what are the real barriers for actually accessing continuous learning opportunities. Anja, whenever you want to jump in, feel free.
Okay, otetaan seuraavaksi sieltä.
Hello, I'm an adult student of University of Helsinki, so this is a slightly different point of view. And well, there is still some work to do to make studying possible and manageable for adults. One example is taking care of a sick child, which is virtually not possible right now. And I do have two questions. One of them is the training for the right professions and forecast on skill demands. There are already existing places where we know that there is a lack of people and they are still not being trained. As an example, speech therapists, which is a master's degree. And there are, I think, 30 places in the University of Helsinki, and the demand in the area of Uusimaa would be more than 100. And there are children not getting their speech therapy for 2 years or more, which could have an effect on PISA studies also. And the second one is that what already also would need to be done is the change on demands, like lowering the threshold for Finnish teaching as a second language. So that is also a master's degree in Finnish language and literature. And the result is that the people who are teaching right now are preschool teachers, they are people working at the airport, they are nurses. No one of them has the training because it's just too much. 5 years of studies in Finnish language and literature for teaching people how to manage in their everyday work. So how are these changes going to be taken care of?
No, thank you. Thank you very much for this question coming from you. Actually, are one to some extent using this continuous learning, which is actually extremely interesting point of view. The first point is that if I were to ask you, do you have a good sense of what are the skills which are in high demand in Finland today, as a way for sort of getting a good sense of what you might want to invest on? You think so? The second point is that sometimes we think about skill shortage in terms of occupation which are in shortage. And sometimes this is very important. And actually, this information can be made even more readily available to everyone. The problem is sometimes, and that's my point of view, we have to move away from the notion that what is in shortage are occupations. What are in shortage are those specific competent to perform specific tasks. And I think what we are doing at OECD, we have a database on skill for jobs. We actually try to map what people do in the different occupation where they work, and what are the occupation in decline, what are the occupation in surplus, in expansion that are increasing. And what you do by task performs, you discover that it's not that difficult with some training to move from one declining occupation into an expanding occupation. In the sense that you already are performing a number of tasks that are the same or very similar to the one in another job, which has a different name in a different sector and so on. And you only need a few months of training to acquire the additional tasks which are performed in this new job and so on. If we were making this information readily available to everyone, this transition and the school, if you like, the skill distance between one job and another one, I think we can reconnect a lot of people with the word of continuous learning. Because it's not that, I am in one occupation, my occupation is declining, there is no other job there, I stick to my job because if I lose it, I'm going to be done. Actually, you can move into another job and you realize that it's not that difficult. There's not much you have to learn in order to move into another job. There's a lot of overlap on task performance in what even are largely different type of occupation and jobs. This piece of information, I don't know how it is in Finland, in many countries not readily available, and people are still, to some extent, into this notion of I move on in my career in this occupation, I can only work in this occupation. This might be true for some specific occupation. If you're a doctor or surgeon, you cannot do much. You will, this is your area. But in many other, there is a lot of similarities to some extent and overlap. And the second is a very good point. I think if you have a better understanding of what the labor market actually needs, you might discover that within the same occupation, the skill requirement might be very different. And sometimes the requirement we impose on certain professions, certain occupation may be too high compared to what most of the people in that occupation actually do. So to some extent, adjust the skill requirement in order to certify to be able to work in this particular occupation is something that has to be studied, has to be assessed very carefully. But I think, again, the digital technology here can be a huge enabler to put all this information up and available to everyone in a very easy way in which people can navigate. And again, remove this notion that, I grew up, I studied one occupation, I can only do that. I think in Finland you are way ahead in other countries because this mentality of continuous learning and moving, I think, is there. But I think we have to remove the other barriers, which are not financial in my view, might be also perception and perceived barriers and so on that might still exist.
Okei, Kirsi. Tai otetaan Kirsi täältä ja sitten siellä.
Niin oikeastaan vaan sen verran kommentoisin, että tämä on tavallaan aika lailla meidän niin kuin kotimainen kysymys, erityisesti meidän kotimainen kysymys. Juuri noin, että niin kuin tämä on nyt niitä jatkuvan oppimisen haasteita ihan mitä suurimmissa määrin. Ja nämä tietyllä tavalla, nämä tilanteet, missä meillä on niin kuin kelpoisuusvaatimukset, niin usein siellä on meillä just niitä tavallaan puute niistä lyhyemmistä selkeistä poluista, jossa voi siirtyä, niin kuin tässä oli puhetta, niin tietystä tehtävästä seuraavaan tehtävään.
Okay. Well, later maybe. We can discuss that. Yeah. Yeah, ole hyvä.
Thank you. I'm Sanna Rekola representing a Finnish NGO platform Fingo, working with development issues, sustainable development and skills anticipation forum here in Finland, working under a Ministry of Education, has pointed out that very important future skills also in working life is understanding of sustainable development and also global skills that you really are able to work and act in a globalized world with all these global challenges we have ahead. And what worries me a lot is that this perspective is totally missing from the discussions of continuous learning here in Finland, at least so far. And I couldn't see this notion even in OECD report. And I think this is something that we really should consider, because it's also probably increasing motivation and meaningfulness for continuous learning from individuals' perspective. And with this wider relevance that it can offer, it can really support us to go forward with these challenges also we have. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this question, which I think, if I understand correctly, it goes beyond continuous learning. I think has to affect formal education even in the early phase of our life. In a sense, what you're referring to is that teaching and building a human capital in which some fundamental issues, global issues we're all facing, whether it's sustainability of our system, economic and social system, whether it's the climate change, and so on and so forth, are brought into our curricula and become part of what we are, who we are. And that's one dimension. So by all means, I think these affect the education system, affect the continuous learning system. The other is actually, and it's more a question, I guess, to you, is when we look at the young generation entering the labor market, they are actually more demanding. They're really navigating a difficult labor market. It's becoming much more demanding on them. It's become more uncertain, but also they're coming with high demands, not only for getting a good job, a stable job, a well-paid job, but actually work in a place where certain values are promoted and respected, right? Whether there's a good gender balance and respect for diversity, whether it's actually the company is performing well in terms of environment and depending on the sector and so on and so forth. And this has very much to do in how the company themselves adapt their offer, not only the job offer, but actually the package they offer to the workers. So it's both sides. It's the demand side and supply side. We definitely have to build this human capital from a broader perspective that takes into account what the market needs in terms of concrete skills, but actually these values that people bring with them, but also how the company themselves and our society, the public sector, is evolving to basically respond to the challenges that our global economy actually are facing. So I fully agree with you. I don't think it's only for continuous learning. It's something that affects the whole education system, but actually affect also the workplace, whether it's public sector, private sector as well. And again, in my way, the challenge to some extent is to help those who might be less able to really make the changes, adopt these changes, including some of the most vulnerable, not only individuals, but actually the company as well, right? Some of the small, medium-sized enterprise may have more difficulty in adapting the workplace, in adopting different policies and attitudes and so on and so forth, because they might be more constrained than the large companies. The last point I want to make, and sometimes companies, especially large ones, do a lot of things and we don't know that very much. There is lack of communication about what different companies are doing in order to exploit some of the synergies of these changes. Each company doing their own bit is important, it's essential, but sometimes by doing similar things together, they might actually achieve a better result. So more information about how companies are moving to a sustainable world and society and economy and environment, I think is, for example, so some global action in which the public sector can play a role in federating some of the effort, in my view, it's important, again, with the close role of the social partner. But this, as you can see, takes me somewhat away from the continuous learning per se.
Okay, just maybe one more comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for a very interesting session. My name is Elina Sani Ollikainen. I work at Arcada, actually with research and innovation and also continuous learning. And I wanted to ask a bit about the questionnaire that you are sending out to the households. Are there questions that include aspects of health conditions and that actually connection to the access to education? Are there questions concerning why people do not participate? Economical barriers, psychological barriers, or information barriers. I have a background in the NGO sector and working for people with disabilities, and that's why I ask this question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this. This is referring to the adult skills survey of the OECD. So this is a household survey. It's about 5,000 individual random sample representing the population 16 to 65. It's done now by more than 40 countries. It's done every 10 years. It's a huge survey. It's an hour and a half, an hour 40 minutes. It's basically aimed at assessing basically competences, problem-solving competences. So literacy, numeracy, and problem-solving in a technological rich environment, which is basically digital skills. So that's the main purpose of that. It's basically the PISA for adults. So it's assessing competence of adults 16 to 65. However, we do actually have a number of characteristics of the individuals, of course, the level of education and so on and so forth, age, but also the health status. So we have a number of covariates, if you like, that characterize the individual herself or of himself. And as I showed you before, we have information about their own responses as to whether they participate in different type of formal, non-formal or informal training. And if they say, no, I did not participate, or I wanted to participate more, we ask them, why didn't you participate more? So there are a number of questions. It's not devoted to that specifically, but there are a number of questions of that. What are the reasons why people do not participate or did not want to participate? Many of them actually mention time. I do not have time to stay away from my job. You correlate that with size of the company, big correlation. So many of those in small and medium-sized enterprise have more time constraints, which is a barrier to participation in training, right? They also say that the training offer is not what they really want. They don't really see a reason why. What would I get out of participating in training? Sometimes there seems to be a lack of motivation on the side of the employer themselves. The employers, even if there are training opportunities, do not really use it. I'll give you one example. The country where Annie and I live, in France, they spend a lot of money, not as much as Finland, but almost in technical vocational education, yet company have to pay a fee, and if they don't want to have their worker participate in training, they have to pay a penalty, which is basically altogether ends up to 1% of the wage bill. Many companies prefer not to have the worker involved in training and pay the fine on the top of the fee. So 1% of the wage bill is a lot of money. Why is that? Because there's not a very good perception that having their worker participating in training is actually going to sort of enhance their capabilities, their competence, and so on and so forth. So we do have this information about what are the barriers, time, adequacy of the training offer compared to what I need, and so on and so forth. We can characterize that, but I think we have to go deeper, and this can only be done at the country level.
Which question did you have concerning the health condition? Did you have a question?
There are self-reported, a few questions about the self-reported health status of the individual, right? And there is a good correlation, fortunately, between the health status and the level of education and the situation to the labor market. Causality is very difficult to assess, is what drives what. I think there is some information of that, but this, of course, is not the focus of the survey itself. We know from a number of other studies that there is a significant two-way correlation between health status, educational outcomes, and labor market outcomes for individuals. I think this brings to another issue, which is investing very early in the life of individuals. Much of what we've been talking about, continuous learning, is also a way to adapt skills and competence and also to remedy on, to some extent, lack of good outcomes in the education system earlier on. Finland is doing very well on the 15 years old, so on the formal education. I think adapting also the education system from formal education is quite important going forward. Again, bringing also some of the elements we were discussing before about if you like, the soft skills, which are certainly much in high demand in the market.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I will conclude with a very general comment. The first sentence of the report says that the Finnish skill development system is still among the most successful in the OECD. And now I read the news today from Yle, and the news starts by saying that the OECD gives reproach or complaints about the continuous learning system in Finland. This is something that we have been discussing along the way with Anja, but people seem to be very critical here in Finland, and even us civil servants towards our own system. But I guess that is only valuable, and being self-critical in a constructive way is the only way forward, and that's how we do things, I guess. So that's not necessarily a bad thing about the news either. But to conclude, first of all, on behalf of both ministries, I would like to thank all of those who took part in the making of this report by discussing with the researchers, by providing information, allowing us to come to visit, and so on. And I want to thank OECD and all of those who contributed to this report there. But still, I would like to say special thanks to Anja, who has been very professional, very committed, and also often very patient when we have not been able to quickly answer all the good questions posed by her. So many thanks, Anja. Kiitoksia kaikille osallistumisesta ja kysymyksistä, ja jatkamme harjoitusta. Kiitos. Thank you.
Kiitos.
Kiitos.